Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to go through an enormous library haul as well as talking about my potential Get a Clue TBR. If you all haven't heard about the Get a Clue Readathon, I will put the announcement video in the description below. It is a month-long readathon put on by Rainy Blue Reads, and it is inspired by the game of Clue. And so I've never participated, but I am a host this year. I did watch from afar last year. I was a little nervous about competitive readathons, but I have done a couple since then. I did the Battle of the Girl Bands by Rainy Blue Reads last year, as well as the Goddess Complex readathon. Those were two competitive readathons that I did participate in, and so I think that I'm ready. Hopefully, but I wanted to do a little bit of a video with you guys. One is a library haul because, as you know, most of my physical collection I have read, and so if I am going to do a competitive readathon, I kind of have to have some options ready and waiting for me because I could do rereads, obviously, from my physical library, but if I'm wanting to read new books or new books to me, I need some options just sitting around. So I have rated my local library. I currently have 33 library books in front of me, and I'm going to split this up. I'm going to give you guys some predictions of what I think the room prompts are going to be. For those of you who don't know anything about Get a Clue, there is going to be a separate prompt for each room on the Clue game board, and we don't know where we're starting. We also don't know what prompts are going to go with each room, or even like what the prompts are. And so I'm literally just guessing. Do not take my word for it. Most of these are probably going to be wrong predictions, but I do have them, I have books for them ready to go if I am correct. I also, with each of my predictions, I'm going to provide a couple of extra recommendations to you if these prompts do end up working, but you don't want to read the book that I plan on reading. And because I have so many books in front of me, I'm probably not going to fully give you a synopsis of every single one. I will try my best, and some of these are in series, and so I can kind of try and be precise, but I am also going to try and give you guys some details because I have some really good options here and I haven't heard of a lot of them or seen a lot of people talking about them. So let's get started. I am going to start with my predictions list for the room prompts and the books that I've picked up for those. Once again, this is not the official prompt list by any means. Rainy has kept all of that secret from us, and so I'm literally just guessing, but I think maybe I've got a few. The room that we're going to start with is the library. I just think that it's fitting for a library haul that we start with the library. And so I am guessing that the prompt for this room is going to be a book within a book. And my pick for this is going to be The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep, which is an H.G. Perry. H.G. Perry is the author of The Magician's Daughter and The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door, which I have absolutely loved. And H.G. Perry likes to put book-themed things within her narratives. And so this book, all I know about it is that Uriah Heep is a character who can bring fictional characters to life. And I'm excited. Fingers crossed that this is good because this is also a buddy read for me. I'm buddy reading this with Rainy from Rainy Blue Reads, but also Nell Diamond and Leandra from Leandra TBR 0. We are going to be reading this together in the month of February regardless of whether or not it comes up. So I'm just hoping that it will work for a room prompt somewhere. But the last book that I chose for our buddy read didn't work out really well. And this was my pick. So I'm hoping that this one will be a win for everybody. If this does end up being a prompt that is chosen, the two other recommendations that I have for you if you don't want to pick up the H.G. Perry is The Book of Doors, because this was one of my favorite books of the year last year, or The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands, which is one of our podcast books. So both of those have a book within a book. The next room that we're going to be visiting is the kitchen, and my prediction for this is going to be that our protagonist is going to be someone who's in the service industry. So for me, I'm going with Murderbot. It's maybe not the typical version of the service industry, but he is useful and does services for humans as a security bot, and so he does provide security for his humans. And I only have 2 more books in the Murderbot series until I'm finished with this series. So also to help my series goal, I put both of them on my TBR. We'll see if they end up working for different prompts, but I am excited to get back to Murderbot. The other two books that I have for you, if you're not interested in Murderbot, because this is the, so the books that I have are Fugitive Telemetry and then System Collapse, which are the last two books. If you haven't started Murderbot and you would like to, the first book in that series is All Systems Red. And it's just a fantastic little series of novellas. The other two recommendations that I have for you guys, though, if you do want another service industry protagonist, is The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Afueko or Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I always get it wrong. The next room we're going to visit is the dining room. For this one, I'm predicting that the prompt is going to be a clash of the classes. And for me, I'm choosing the Dragons of Nova for this. This is the second book in the Loom saga. The first book is The Alchemist of Loom. And in this series, you have two major factions. You have the Dragons and the Fenry, I think is the second faction. And the Fenry live in Loom. The Dragons live in Nova, but the Dragons have taken control over Loom and have made some pretty significant changes that do affect all of the people who live in Loom. You also have this really interesting race of characters, I guess I would call them, as Chimera. And the dragons in this are not what I would say are typical dragons. They're, at least in my mind, they're more humanoid. Actually, you can see one of them, if I can get this, on the front of this cover. So they're not like dragons with wings. They actually have gliders. This is kind of a steampunk society as well. And in the first book, you are following a character who runs into one of these dragons, and she is kind of a sworn enemy of dragons. She does not enjoy them being in her city and has actually taken it upon herself as kind of like a little bit of a renegade to kill any dragons that come within her domain. This dragon is wanting to visit the Alchemist Guild of Loom, and they are where a lot of the resistance to the dragon's takeover was initially housed. They have since been beaten down, but they do still exist. And so this dragon would like to go to them. And so he ends up asking our main character to take him to them. And you don't know why, you figure that out along the way. It's a really cool world. The Chimera in this, so you have the dragons, the Fenry, and the Chimera. And the Chimera actually take some of their magic from dragons. I'm not going to tell you how, you'll have to read it to figure it out. I found this world really fascinating, and the characters in it are just, I really liked being in our characters' heads. We do follow multiple POVs in this, and I like being in both of their heads and being able to see the differences between the two classes, what they think of each other, and what's going in their mind as they're having these conversations. This is also an enemies to lovers storyline, so if you guys are interested in that, it's not something I typically enjoy, but I really did like it here. My other two recommendations for the clash of the classes would be Rage of Dragons and Foul Days. So if you're not interested in the Alchemist of Loom series, you can pick up those two if that prompt happens to arise. The next room that we're going to be visiting is the study. And typically in a study, you want to be kind of quiet. And so I am predicting that the prompts for this room are going to have something to do with noise. So I am guessing that it's going to say that there has to be something about noise in the title. So I am choosing A Quiet Life in the Country. This is also a murder mystery, and we do get extra points for reading murder mysteries within the game of Clue. It also has quite a bit of blue on the cover. Maybe not as much as I would want, because I am on Team Peacock. If you guys are looking for a team to join, come join my team. But we do also get points for having covers that are primarily blue. And I have an entire stack of books here that will help me with that. So that's not necessarily why I chose this one. But within this, the only thing I know about this series is it's kind of a cozy mystery series where you are following two women who help solve murders, and I think one of them is a maid. And so it's definitely like an amateur sleuth. They end up moving out to the countryside to kind of get away from all of the drama, but murders follow them and they just can't help themselves. I've heard that the women in this are also very sassy, which I'm all for, and so I can't wait to get into this. I had a hard time coming up with extra books for this, and so the two that I chose were ones that dealt with music. I have theme music and The Savage Song, but I've also thought about like some horror novels. So like The Quiet Tenant has something about quiet in it. I'm sure that silence has been used, Silence of the Lambs, in a whole bunch of different books, but those are my recommendations for that. The next room that we're going to be visiting is the Billiard Room. This one I had a hard time coming up with a prompt because I know last year they did sports as a prompt. And so I don't want to do anything that was similar to that. So I said humorous, like a humorous book, because when people are in a billiard room playing pool, they'd be talking to each other and having a good time. That's kind of where my head was. The book that I chose for this is The Undetectables, which is a book I've wanted to read since it came out. And I'm pretty sure that was last year, so it hasn't been too long, but it is a murder mystery series. We have, I think, 2 witches and a ghost maybe are put together to solve mysteries, and they're not very good at it. The only case that they have open is unsolved, but they are still asked to investigate some murders that are going on with kind of a grisly serial killer that's going on. It's noted as being humorous, and it sounds like a really fun, kind of cute time, and so fingers crossed that I love it. The other 2 recommendations that I have for that are Paladin's Grace, which is the Saints of Steel series by T. Kingfisher. Top-notch banter on that one. And then the Murderbot series, which I've already mentioned here, which is about a sassy robot that really doesn't want to help humans. He just wants to stay at home and watch some Netflix or some soap operas. And the next room that we're going to go to is the Conservatory. And the Conservatory, I thought of like plants and things, and so I thought maybe it would be climate fiction. That's my guess. And for me, I'm choosing The Marrow Thieves. This is a book I probably wouldn't pick up without my out of my comfort zone, my That's Not Normal challenge that I'm doing this year, because it is YA. And the storyline isn't necessarily something that I'm drawn to, but I do think it is, or it has a potential to be a really important read. And I know that it does have some awards that have been given to it, but this features a dystopian society where global warming has completely destroyed the world. But there are some other things that are happening within that are making Indigenous people in America be hunted by others for their marrow. I don't know if it's bone marrow or if that's what we're talking about, but they're being hunted because everyone else in the world has stopped dreaming, and the Indigenous peoples haven't stopped dreaming, but apparently their marrow can allow other people to dream. So I'm excited to get to this because I do think that it will have some important themes in it, but not one I probably would have picked up without challenging myself to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. 2 other climate fiction books that you can check out are The Tainted Cup, which I've talked a lot about last year, or The Hanging City also has some climate stuff within it as well. The next room that we're headed to is the Ballroom, and my prediction for this is that we're going to have some type of competition or trial or school maybe that we have to have in the setting. And for me, I'm going to choose The Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This is the same author of Jade City, which Jade City wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't because I disliked this author's writing. And so I do want to give something that's maybe a little bit shorter a try and see if their shorter works will work better for me. This book does, I think, feature a school. We have a young girl whose entire family, or most of their family, is killed by a manticore, and she ends up going to school to learn how to ride these giant birds that are called rocks, and ends up becoming kind of a famous person within her society. I'm not exactly sure where it goes from there, but this cover alone does intrigue me. So we'll see how this one goes. If you want more recommendations for competitions and trials, maybe give Gideon the Ninth a try or Warrior of the Wild. The next room that we're going to go to is the Hall, and the prompt that I have for this is that it's going to be an intimidating read. And for this, I'm going to be picking up Lincoln in the Bardo. Now you might be thinking, like, this isn't like a super long book, so why is this intimidating to me? As you know, I love chunky reads, and so I didn't feel like it was fair for me to put a bigger book in this and say that that's intimidating. Instead, I went for content. So this book features Abraham Lincoln's son who dies, but instead of, so it's a historical fiction, but it's also fantasy because I think his son is stuck in like almost a purgatory, and you get to live with his son as he, I think, witnesses what his family goes through as he's dead and the grieving process there, and also some other things within this realm that he's stuck in. And so not a subject matter that I would go for, and so it is a little intimidating to me, but I have enjoyed plays on historical events before, and so I am intrigued by the topic. I didn't give any extra recommendations for this one because intimidation is different for everybody. So pick a book that you're intimidated by and read that one. The last room we'll be visiting is The Lounge. And I'm gonna say that the prompt for this is gonna be a relaxing read. Maybe Rainy's gonna be nice to us and one of the rooms will get to like a mood read. I can dream, right? So my pick for this is going to be The Throne of Jade. And this is the second book in the Temeraire series, which is just very relaxing. It's a cozy book featuring a dragon who is born on a ship full of people who are not prepared to do what they need to do to kind of take a dragon under their wing. Pun not intended. But the ship captain ends up taking on the task of being this dragon's handler. And he, because of circumstances surrounding this dragon's birth, where they're at and what they know about dragons, he has to kind of act immediately. And he ends up having to work with England's army because this is set in a historical time where England and France are at war and dragons are one of their military weapons. And so you get to follow Temeraire learning the lives of humans and why we make the decisions that we do. I just think it's lovely and I'm excited to continue the series. Other relaxing reads that you could try would be A Psalm for the Wild Belt or The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. Okay, the rest of this video is going to be the rest of my library haul. And the first stack of books that I'm going to go through are all books that have mainly blue covers because I am Team Peacock. Once again, shouting out my team. If you haven't picked a team yet, forget a clue, join my team, join Team Peacock, and we get extra points for reading blue books. And so that's why I have a stack of blue books. The first one is Ravenfall, and I know like at first glance it doesn't look like it's blue, but it actually does have quite a bit of blue in the front cover. This is a middle grade, I think. It's middle grade or YA, I'm pretty sure it's middle grade though. And it follows a 13-year-old girl whose family runs an inn. The inn is between the other world and the human world, and she is supposed to help her family run it, but her gift in life is to see death, to foresee death. And so it's a bit hard for her to make customers feel welcome when she sees things that are a little bit foreboding. So we'll see. It sounds really cute and I've been excited about it for a while. I need to pick it up. Next we have How to Steal a Galaxy. This is the second book in a Full Speed to a Crash Landing, which is a book that I featured in my vlog on Tuesday for the new releases I didn't get to in 2024. It's a kind of a fun sci-fi mystery series. It's very fast-paced, really short, and I'm excited to continue the series. The next one I've had on my TBR before, The Affair of the Mysterious Letter. This is actually Leandra's host pick for Get a Clue, and so I do get extra points, which is why I waited from January and I pushed it into February so I would get those extra points. So this is on another TBR. Fingers crossed that in February this actually works for one of my room prompts and I can get to it. And then I have Midwinter Murders. This is a short story collection by Agatha Christie, and one of my goals in my That's Not Normal challenge that I'm doing this year is to pick up anthologies because it's not something I gravitate towards. I normally don't like short stories, but I think mystery short stories might be a different thing for me, and so I'm gonna try these out. Next we have Haunt Sweet Home, which is a reality TV show that has staged scares, but there is also some ghost stories going on and some things might not quite be as staged as they think. I think it sounds really fun. It's also really short. It's by a Hugo Award-winning author, so I'm excited to give it a try. Next is one that I'm probably the most excited for on my stack of blue books, and that is The Last Gift of the Universe, The Last Gifts of the Universe. This, I don't know if you can see, but this little character here, that's a cat in an astronaut costume, and I am so excited just for that aspect. But we feature, I think, two main characters and their cat who travel to different planets to get the last gifts that they have of civilization, because they have found that in traveling in space that their home planet which they call home, is the last one alive. And whatever has killed the rest of civilization in the universe is inevitably going to come to them. And so they are traveling around trying to figure out these gifts on other worlds that might help their homeworld survive. The next book is The Beast of Extraordinary Circumstance, and this book is blue, but it's really dark blue. You probably can't catch it on camera, but this sounds like kind of a weird story, and so that's one of the reasons I really want to pick it up. It's about someone who literally stops a tornado and discovers they have some type of powers, and they're a little bit of an unusual character. And I think this story is told from the perspective of people whose lives he has come into and then exited. And so it sounds like someone is maybe going around and like interviewing people who've come into contact with him, and they're telling them their thoughts and stories about him, which that part sounds a little weird. And his perspective sounds interesting as well. Like, did he know he had this power to stop the tornado? Did he want to use it in front of other people? What are the implications of that? And why are we talking about beasts of extraordinary circumstances? That's a little weird as well. So we'll see how this book turns out. Next is Harrow the Ninth. I was so excited to find out that this has a blue cover because I really want to continue this. This is a series of a whole bunch of necromancers who are essentially competing to become something a little bit more powerful and help the worlds that they are on. And that's kind of all I'm going to say. It is really, really complex, and it is kind of a chunkier series, but the kind of snarkiness of one of our characters from the first book, Gideon, is absolutely phenomenal. I just really enjoyed their perspective, and I'm excited to see where the book goes from where the first book ends. We shall find out. Next is In the Garden of Monsters, which was actually just a random pickup at the library as I was walking through. This is a kind of Hades and Persephone retelling, but it's featured from the perspective of a girl who is becoming, or is being, a model for a really famous artist in the Garden of Monsters that have these statues that there's like legends of them coming to life. And this man, this artist, is trying to convince her that she is the goddess Persephone and that she needs to eat these pomegranate seeds. And it sounds like she goes into a little bit of a fever dream throughout this, trying to figure out if this man is insane or if she actually is the goddess. So maybe a little bit of an unreliable narrator. I don't know. I'm excited to find out. The last blue book that I have for you guys is The Cemetery of Untold Stories, which features an author who decides to create a literal graveyard for her failed manuscripts that still haunt her. And I'm not sure if that means the manuscripts actually do come back and haunt her, or if it's more of a metaphorical thing. We'll find out. Next, we have my pile of just short books that I'm interested in, and so I just went and got a pile of books that I could read just to have some options. One of them is from my 25 and 2025, which is The Dream Quest of Villette Beau, or Villette Beau, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. And one of you actually commented and said that there is a short story by H.P. Lovecraft that this is supposed to be a response to. And so I am going to read that short story before I read this one, but I'm not going to count this entire book because I'm just reading one of the short stories in it. But this features a professor whose student gets taken into the dreamscape. Not exactly sure what that means. And the professor goes in to get her. And so I don't know. It's been on my mind for a little bit. It is a really short novella, and now that I know that it ties into one of H.P. Lovecraft's original little short stories, I'm intrigued. Next we have William, which is a horror book featuring a house that I think comes to life. So think Smart House from Disney, but maybe a little bit creepier. Next we have The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water. And I don't really know a ton about this. It is very short, so I don't want to read it into it, but a lot of people were saying that this is one of the best fantasy standalones that they've ever read. The thing that caught me was this little clip in the front cover that just says, "A bandit walks into a coffee house and things go downhill from there." Which I'm like, okay, I'm here for those vibes. We have a group of thieves who get themselves into a little bit of a pickle and have to find themselves out of it. That's all I really know. Next is The Shadow of Spindrift House. This is a horror by Mira Grant, which I have been wanting to read for a while. It is YA, so I'm a little out of my comfort zone with that. We see that challenge coming back around, me trying to get a little bit out of my comfort zone. It features kind of an amateur sleuth, a young amateur sleuth, who I think her and her friends are ones that solve mysteries together, but they are kind of growing out of doing that. And so she's trying to do like one last hurrah, and they end up going to Spindrift House. There's something to do with nature and it not really enjoying straight lines. That's all I really know. We'll see what happens. Speaking of Mira Grant, I also have Every Heart a Doorway. I don't know what this series is about. I know it's the Wayward Children series. A lot of people love it, and it's a portal world about children. That's all I know. But maybe February is the month for me to start it. I also have the Wild Robot series, which I haven't finished yet. I did read The Wild Robot last year and I thought it was really cute. I haven't seen the movie yet, and I kind of don't want to until I finish this because I'm not sure if the movie ends at the end of the first book or if it ends at the end of the trilogy. And so I do have both of them. I could finish it out if I wanted to because I'm pretty sure it's only a trilogy. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be sad. But I do have both of these. If you haven't heard of The Wild Robot, you have a robot who is being delivered to civilization but ends up getting thrown off of a ship and on an island, and she is in nature and has to figure out how to survive in nature. It's very, very cute, very cozy, and I'm excited to see where the series goes. I also have some manga just in case my brain gets a little over-fried in February. As you've seen all the books, I imagine I might need a little bit of a break. One of those is Witch Hat Atelier. I have still not gotten to this, even though I have had this on multiple TBRs, but I would like to because the artwork on this is just gorgeous. And then the other manga that I have is Delicious in the Dungeon, and I only have volumes 1 and 3 right now, but I do plan on getting volume 2 from the library as well. It just hasn't gotten to me yet. And so those are the manga that I have. I also have my Freyrin that I own. I have not started it yet. I was supposed to start it in January. I just haven't gotten to it. So I also have that possible. And then the last book I will mention is Between Dragons and Their Wrath. So I have been reading a ton of dragon books recently, and I have heard several people talk about this one and say that it's good. I'm pretty sure it's a debut novel. I really don't know anything else about it other than the fact that it has dragons in it, and I have been reading a lot of dragon books. So that's why it's here. It's a possibility for my TBR in February. And oh my goodness, friends, I've been sitting here talking to you forever. I have stacks of books around me. This is absolutely madness. I hope, beyond hope, that I get a third of these read in the month of February, along with some of the buddy reads that I have planned throughout the month as well. But it is absolutely ludicrous. But I'm glad that I have all these options because who knows what Rainy's going to throw at us for Get a Clue. I hope that throughout this video you found some books in here that maybe you're interested in reading. If you have predictions for the rooms for Get a Clue, leave them in the comments down below, unless you don't want to spoil or if you don't want to give away any hints to some of the other teams. But I would love to know what your guys' predictions are for the room prompts this year. If you aren't feeling chatty, just leave me a little magnifying glass so I know that you guys are here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and may Team Peacock win. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.